I'll jump right into it here. As I said, I'm Mark Morgan. Just a quick background, got to have the PR slides about Qualcomm. I like to say that Qualcomm is probably the most famous company you've never heard of. Who in this room uses cell phones? Anyone? Got some cell phones? Okay, so you probably touched our technology at some point. We invented, or the company famous for using CDMA. That's one of our core technologies. Just some information about the company. One interesting stat, and I actually didn't know we were number one now, but we are the world's largest fabless semiconductor. So as we're producing chips for cell phones, we don't have any fabs ourselves. That's all working with partners, and a very interesting business model for us. Just another slide, in terms of technology, you never heard of. So a lot of devices. It's a very fast-paced market. Everyone, as everyone knows, 5 years ago, where was Android, iPhone, smartphones? Things have really changed in the cell phone industry and the smartphone industry in the last 5 years. So it's a very fast-paced market, and we're expected to be at the bleeding edge of that and a step ahead of that because we're producing technology that's the next wave and the next things that are coming. So very challenging. One quick story I wanted to share as I was preparing this, just thought it was very prescient of our CEO 10 years ago. This is back in 2000. So I was sitting in one of the all-hands meetings. He said, at the time, got up and said, 10 years from now, you're going to be carrying around a cell phone in your pocket that's more powerful than the desktop PC you have today. And I looked it up, and back at the time, we had just broken the 1 gigahertz mark on Intel processors and chips. And here we are 10 years later. Most of our cell phones are all a gigahertz. We've announced that we have 1.5 to 2.5 gigahertz coming out next year. So it's like he went into the future and came back and told us exactly what was going to happen 10 years later, and he was spot on. So what are we going to talk about today? Just go over our agenda real quick. We're going to take a look at virtualization. One of the challenges people have is getting over that hurdle of data virtualization, and does it really work, and can I use it? It seems like a new scary thing, so I kind of want to debunk that and take a look at it. Talk about agile data in your developers. What does it really mean to the business? The all-important question. Review some of our use cases, things that we did as we got started with data virtualization, and then talk about, assuming at this point I've kind of convinced you, hey, this is interesting. It's let's look at it. How do we actually get there? What do I do to take the first steps? How do I achieve success looking at this? And then review at the end our results. So as I was thinking about this and looking at data virtualization, I had this thought that this is not new. When we were first introducing it at Qualcomm 2 years ago, there was a lot of resistance to this concept of data virtualization and having stuff kind of in the ether and this kind of magical things merge and just work. And well, that's scary, and how's that going to perform? How's that going to impact production systems? And so it's this concept that is kind of new and scary. And especially within IT, we love our data. We love having it close to us. We love having it in our systems. We do ETL and build data warehouses. So it's kind of breaking through that mental barrier of understanding what data virtualization is and getting past that hurdle that is something new and scary. So I had this thought that virtualization is not new. We've been doing it for years, rolling way back, in the early 60s and 70s with computers. The quote, "Who needs more than 640K of RAM?" Well, we know today that was laughable, but as systems were designed that way, you had to have memory virtualization to kind of expand beyond that, to expand the architecture. That was new and scary at the time. Network virtualization, whether we're binding NICs or doing virtualization network levels. Again, at the time, new and scary. Why am I going to trust some network virtualization device when I can tie it to the host? Looking at desktop virtualization, storage virtualization. The idea I have a RAID device. We used to have giant hard disks with lots of information. Somebody came up with the right idea, let's put a bunch of disks together and create a virtual interface, and we're just going to write data across all of them and trust that it all works. I know when that first came out, that was huge and scary, and yet now all of our data centers run off them. They run off SANs and NAS and these large devices that are all built on this technology. And the last two, looking at host and, of course, what we're here to talk about today, data virtualization. And I want to focus on these last two, partially because they're relatively new, but looking at similarities between them. So talking real quick about host virtualization, I'm just curious, if I show hands in the room, is anyone in the room running production servers on host virtualization systems today? Some sort of host virtualization, okay. So I see a lot of hands. And by show of hands, how many were doing that 5 years ago? So I was thinking back, to 5 years ago. What were we doing before we had virtualization at the host level? And the first thing that occurred to me is when we were starting projects 5 years ago, the very first thing that the project managers came and asked us is, what hardware do you need? Well, we haven't even designed an architecture yet. We don't know what systems we're going to need. What do you mean, what hardware do we need? And it was very bizarre, and so we cobbled together an architecture real quick and come up with some ideas. Well, we think maybe this is what we need. Some couple servers in dev, a web server, dev server. Get an order together and get that through. And the reason was because it took 8 weeks to get that hardware in. So if we waited until a couple months into the project, when we had an architecture, had some software, we now had a 2-month lag to get the servers in to actually start building the things that we needed. So today, that sounds bizarre. Today, the last thing I think about is what host do I need when I start a project, right? I start my project, hey, I need a dev server. I need to have some new software I want to test. Click a button, a few minutes later, I've got my server. I need 2 more. Click 2 more buttons, I've got 2 more servers. We don't even think about what's happening behind the scenes. It's just assumed now that that's just there. We have that host virtualization layer, and we can make it physical later if we need to. So we've gone from servers taking 8 weeks to provision and get racked to just having one in a few minutes. Tremendous power and cost savings. So and kind of looking ahead here, as we see we're 60% virtualized in our data center. That's a lot of servers we don't have to run. Real estate in San Diego is very expensive. We know data center cooling and electricity is very expensive. And being able to virtualize and consolidate saves us a tremendous amount of money, energy, and a tremendous cost savings that we can actually measure and say this is saving us a lot of money. And also the easier administration. The guys who run our virtualization solutions love the administration. It's very easy to facilitate additional requirements or additional capacity. Hey, my server's running a little slow. Can you look into that? Sure, we just migrated you over to the tier 1 systems. Well, did it have any downtime? No, we just did it all live and took care of that. And so the response and the administration is just much higher and much easier. And in fact, our server admin guys have some charts that show industry admins to servers, and ours is off the charts in terms of the number of servers we've been able to add, and they're able to maintain and keep up with that with even less staff than they had a few years ago. Considerations. So it's not a challenge. Clearly, we've been very successful with it, but a consideration is performance. 2 or 3 years ago, when we were talking about virtualizing our production servers, our web servers, whatever, well, if it's slow, how are we going to know? Well, who's, and virtualization is the new scapegoat. Oh, it's virtualization's fault. Something's wrong in the virtualization layer, and they have to prove now that it wasn't a virtualization issue, but that it's some other piece of the system. And we've gotten very good at putting some processes in place to help solve performance challenges. Whether that's having tiered levels of virtualization that we can use, or even as applications and our developers complaining that things are slow, being able to migrate that to maybe the top tier and say, now take a look at it. Well, it's still slow. Okay, well, it's not the virtualization. Maybe it's your application. We take a look. Oh, yeah, we need to add some indexes on the database or whatever. But, of course, everyone blames virtualization first. So it gets us kind of bad rap for having a performance challenge, and really you just have to manage to that. In our experience, again, we've been doing this for 5 or 6 years now since we started our first host virtualization efforts. Very measurable after that period of time, able to add up and say we've saved over $20 million over 5 years, and looking at being very successful with our virtualization efforts. So looking at data virtualization, this looks real similar. So it sounds, again, new and scary, but if we look at it and compare it to even a recent trend, I expect 5 years from now, the same thing that we have with data host virtualization, you're going to wonder how you ever got your data without it. You're going to say, I need some data right now, and you're going to remember, that used to be a couple-week effort to go gather some analysts, to put some process in place, and it was 4 to 6 weeks before I saw the first thing in development that showed me my data. How did I ever get by when today I can do it in just a few days or a few hours? And this is very real. We see this time and again. We've been doing virtualization for a couple years now with Composite, and it sounds magical and hocus pocus. And when we first came in and looked at it, and they told us they could do things in hours that took weeks, we said, yeah, right. And we see it now again and again, where we have customers that meet with us in the morning, and we tell them ahead of time, bring your information, what are you trying to accomplish in your data repository. They give that to us. We leave that meeting, we go look, hey, we've already got 2 of the 3 systems that they were interested in integrating, already in Composite, already virtualized. We go add the 3rd one, and by the end of the day, we've turned around a dev system for them where they can go log in and look at the data, and we say, is this right? That is an incredibly fast turnaround. In fact, I was talking over lunch with Mark that it's actually changed the proposition, the way the business thinks about it, to where they used to be very frustrated with IT, and we were in the way. We were slowing down the business. They were saying, we want faster data, we want faster turnaround, and now we're waiting on the business because we turn around so quickly, and we get data back to them, we're waiting for them to look at it and validate and say, is that right? Is that the right data? And when the data isn't right, to then provide us, okay, well, what are the requirements you were trying to meet, and what are the corrections? And we turn around very, very quickly. Development cost savings. Again, reusable data. I mentioned, we'll get a requirement for 2 or 3 systems we want integrated, and so we've already got some of them virtualized. We're able to reuse some of the systems we already have virtualized, reuse some of the models we already have in place, and of course we see that as a development cost savings. Not only is the time shorter because we didn't have to go and do a whole ETL or data warehouse or other data initiative, but we also get reuse as well. So we're seeing a lot of cost savings there. And then easier administration and management. One fantastic thing about virtualization that's easy to skip over when you're looking at all the federation capabilities is that it provides a nice abstraction layer. So as we're talking about putting in systems in place where it might have been a traditional integration, point-to-point, or even a message-driven architecture, there's still a strong binding to the systems that you're interfacing with. When you put virtualization in on top of that, if you segment your views properly, we've been able to swap out entire source systems underneath, put new ones in, and upgrade without any downtime to the end applications at all, because it's all abstracted with that virtualization layer. And so the data source moved, who cares? We're serving up the data now through a different source, and the business doesn't ever have to know that switched, we did an upgrade. It's much less painful. Considerations, and Kabbalah wasn't too happy about this one having up here. It's the elephant in the room, right? What about performance? How is that going to perform? Is that going to impact the production systems? It sounds like it's going to be slow. And just like any other virtualization solution, performance is a concern. You have to pay attention to it, but it's not a showstopper. It's not a reason to stay away. It's just something that you have to manage, you have to be aware of, and you have to pay attention to. We've seen that as we turn around solutions very quickly, we're also training the business to be able to do some of this themselves, so it's not all one central team that has to manage it, and enabling them to use these tools. And as they're new to it, they fumble a little bit and don't always tune the performance right, and so they come back and say, hey, it's really slow. So we go in and help them out and help tune them and explain where how to tune that and eliminate that concern. And for us, again, the same with our host virtualization. We've been very successful with our data virtualization initiatives. Performance has not been a big issue for us. Again, it's something we pay attention to. It's something we spend a little more time doing performance tuning and a lot less time doing development. So our experience, our adoption process is progressing across dozens, and I'll show this at the end here, of projects across the business. And we're absolutely seeing benefit where projects were taking much longer before, and we're able to turn those around much faster for the business now. So now that I've got you all comfortable and cozy with the idea of virtualization, I was thinking about how do you begin to approach virtualization? How do you think about the problem? And the easiest way I can think about it is just to think different. And we've heard this in previous presentations, that you have to think a little bit different about your data and about your problem and about how you tackle these challenges when you're doing data virtualization. It's not the same as doing an ETL or having a data warehouse or having it all local. Things are a little bit different, and so it requires a little bit of a mindset change. So like the Apple logo, and they made this famous way back when, and clearly they've been able to think different and change the world. So as you're doing your projects, it's just something to keep in mind. If simple 2 words, just think a little different about how we approach it. Don't try and approach the problems the same way we have before. So talking about agile data and your developers. what does this look like as we're actually using data virtualization? As we're doing our projects, what do they look like for us? One of the first things that we see is an acceleration in the software development and lifecycle. This is a big one, and I mentioned this a little bit before, which is the data is available very early in the cycle. It used to be we'd start a new project, an integration project, or a data project. The customers are saying, I need this new system. Again, that we would take 4 to 6 weeks, gather requirements, and then show them something. And by most standards, that's pretty quick. To have something available to them in a dev environment within 4 weeks from their requirements, that's pretty good. And they look at it and say, that's not quite what we had in mind. That's not quite what we meant. Yeah, I think maybe you missed something there. Or requirements have changed in just 4 weeks. And maybe we need a new system or we need different data. And so then we go back into a cycle and we try and adjust. And the managing the data becomes the long pole in the tent of our projects. We're able to turn that around and what we do what's called fail fast. If we're gonna have that challenge, let's have it very early on. Let's get that data to them in the first day and they look at it and say that's not right, but it's okay because we turn around so quickly. There's no time lost. It's not a big deal, and so we can adjust to the customer requirements very, very quickly. And that really has changed, again, already in our process, how we think about data and how we manage our projects. No longer are the developers waiting on data to be available and waiting on the customer to validate it. We have that very early on in the schedule. And talking a little bit more here, that inconsistencies are caught very early on. So the other challenge that we've seen in projects is, so we do all this development testing, we put all this effort into it, the customers all validated it, and then we go to prod and it blows up, right? Something's not right, and we check, and there's data in prod that we didn't expect. There's data that wasn't there. They didn't backport some of the schema changes into the test environments or whatever, and so it all blows up in prod, and people work long weeks to try and get it fixed and get it resolved, and your quality really suffers. Well, because virtualization is so lightweight, it's really not a big deal for us to apply the same views to prod before we go live and start running some queries and validate, are we seeing the same types of data? Do things look right? And it's very low touch. Again, it's not a big data warehouse or movement effort. And that really has allowed us to catch these inconsistencies much earlier on and avoid those surprises. Talking about BI and analytics, rich comprehensive data, this use case to us actually really ties into more of our reusable data. I don't know how many of you have different BI solutions. We've got 3 or 4 of them that we use depending on which business unit, which customer, what they're trying to deliver, and they move. So it's this product this year, and then we don't like that vendor, and now it's this product that year, and so it's hard to keep track. And so as we put in a bunch of effort into our BI systems, well, now we've got to redo all that effort in the next system. We've been able to push that down into the composite layer, and this resonates very strongly with our BI Center of Excellence. We told them this, why weren't we doing this 2 years ago? To push it all down, and all the pain that they're feeling now as they're migrating from one solution to the next, all that semantic mapping and all the work that they've done would be there in composite, and putting a new BI solution on top of it is not that hard, because they've done all the hard work and pushed that down a layer. Again, that's a message that's resonated very well with them, so they're having a lot of uptake with this as well. Reusable data, again, talking about cost savings there, the fact that once you put it into your virtualization layer, you get to reuse it because it's visible. One of the challenges we have is we have siloed businesses, is that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. And this person has done this integration effort, and then this person over here starts the same effort 2 months later with no idea that it was just done over here. And so we're reproducing a lot of work. When we have it all on the virtualization layer, again, because we have that visibility, because it's a shared environment, we're able to get a lot more reuse, and we've already seen a lot of deduplication of effort that used to go on before. And then, of course, reduced maintenance costs. We're not replicating data for the sake of replicating data, as we like to say. It used to be we just move data around because this system needs to have it local to their system because they don't want to reach out to another one, or we don't want to have our systems tightly coupled. So we're moving data around just basically for the sake of moving it around, and we don't have to do that anymore with data virtualization. So we save a lot of maintenance headaches looking into, hey, why is the data different in this system than it is in this system? Oh, there was a synchronization challenge and we lost a few messages, or a batch process didn't update last night. So what does it mean to the business? It all sounds good. So a faster realization of benefits. We get faster access to data, so our projects move quicker. And this sounds simple, but again, when the business is waiting on IT, when IT is an impediment, when IT is stopping the business from moving ahead because they're waiting on us to deliver solutions, and as you'll see in one of the case studies here, this is tremendous. Our business, again, in the industry we're in, is changing so rapidly, we can't afford for IT to be slowing the business down. So being able to deliver faster access to data, being able to deliver our projects faster, has been a tremendous accelerator for our business. Better decision making, having more current data and reliable data. When we did one of the case studies I'll show you, we had a production system in place, and we had Composite come in and do the POC, and we compared the work that we had done as part of the POC to our production system as a validation. Hey, is this stuff really working? Does this look right? And we went back to Composite and said, something's wrong. Your system's screwing up. We're seeing bad data. And we went and looked and rechecked, and still the same data. And we checked again, and we found out that, in fact, our production systems were wrong. We had a synchronization challenge that we had missed in one of our integrations, and we had some bad data in production that we had not known about until we did the POC with Composite and saw the discrepancy, and again, thought Composite was fault, and it turned out we needed to fix our production systems. So having that current data, more reliable data, because you're not moving it and having to track it all over the place, you're just going right to the source. You're getting it from the system of record. It's much more reliable and it's fresh and more current. And then, of course, lower costs. We talked about easing the maintenance. So it's much easier to maintain the system. And, again, re-leveraging and getting greater value out of our existing data. So with that, I'm going to jump into some of our a couple use cases that looking at what we did when we first started with Composite, and we've had dozens more projects since then, but these are well documented, so I'll review them here and just talk about what we did with these projects. So starting with that, we have our information delivery architecture. And as you hear me talk a little bit later on, this was an important step for us in looking at data virtualization. Data virtualization is not a panacea. It does not solve all your problems. It does not fix everything. It's got certain correct use cases in certain places where it's very valuable. And so we didn't go out and look at data virtualization, go out and purchase a solution, selling it to the business that this is going to fix all your problems, this is everything. And maybe it sounds silly to say that, but we've seen this time and time again where the business is sold on some technology solution that's going to fix everything, and they get burned by it. It doesn't fix everything, and they say, we don't want to support the next one, right? We're tired of buying these solutions. So for us, data virtualization was not just a single technology purchase. It was really part of an architecture that we were building, and we were communicating this message before with the business and the leaders. And so when it came time to say, hey, we need to acquire, and it says Composite software here, in the our version that doesn't have Composite specifically, just says data virtualization. When it came time to find that data virtualization solution, we'd already communicated what we were trying to accomplish through the different levels of the stack, and why that fit into that particular piece. And I won't spend too much more time talking about this, but if you have more questions on architecture, I'm certainly willing to talk to people afterwards and explain kind of what we've done here, and how these different pieces play into our architecture. So one of the projects that we did, we have a project called our Oasis portal. This was all the points I've been talking about. This was one of the poster child, if you will, of the challenge we have with IT not keeping up with the business. One of our product managers had this idea that we wanted to build a portal where we can look at all of our chips and all of our technology that we're producing and have in one spot all the information related to them. So we can see who the product manager of a chip was. We can see who the technical leader for the video component was. We can see what individual chips were part of if we have stacked chips, what chips were part of that. Maybe track that to defects or bugs or issues that we're hearing, and have it all in one place. Sounds great. Typically, that's something you do as a data warehouse initiative. And when we started this, before we had data virtualization, that's what we did. We started building a data warehouse, tackled the first 3 or 4 systems first. Of course, there's a lot of inertia kind of getting that started. And then we kind of got our steam, and we were doing additional integrations that they wanted about every 3 months. Well, they had 20 plus of these to do. And so they did the math and said, if you're only delivering them every 3 months, we're going to be here till 2015 until we get all the systems integrated. And of course, we're adding new systems a couple times a year, so you guys are going to be way behind the curve. And so this isn't going to work. So we took a look at that right as we were considering our information architecture and looking at data virtualization and how can that help accelerate this problem. And when we worked with the business to actually put data virtualization in, we were able to leverage the work that was already done in the data warehouse, so we didn't lose that work per se, although now we could go back to the source systems and not have to support that. But now we're able to add new systems much, much faster. They want the next system brought online. We can have it ready in the dev environments in a week or two, where it's integrated and plugged in. And what we're finding, again, going back to what I said earlier, that the key challenge is not IT and the technology of getting these things integrated. The key challenge is the business validating the data. We bring it in and find that it's not as clean as they thought. There's challenges with the relationships. And so you have all the data challenges, issues that are still there. But we're able to surface those to the business in a very rapid way. And in a way, again, get kind of IT out of the way. It's not that we're moving too slow. It's that we need to solve these data challenges, and we're able to surface that to them. And so things aren't moving, one project a month or whatever. We're able to get the next project, we get it delivered in the system very quickly. When they finally work the data challenges, we move on to the next one. So again, we're moving as fast as the business is able to move now in this project. Just speaking to different alternatives. So, well, couldn't we just add more resources, more staff, and do more projects? Again, because the business has to validate the data, there's only so many people in the business that can do that know the data experts. So you can't put entire teams of projects together and have 6 of these running in parallel, all pinging the same person to get some data validation. They don't have enough time in the day to do that. But again, we turned the situation around where now they're not waiting on us. And we're able to see a lot of success through this project. Another project we did that was very early on, and as I talk about the slide coming up after this, about the things that you can do to be successful. This one was it kind of had 2 purposes. One was that so we talked about our data and our chips and elements. Well, people are also fundamental to our business. We want to know who has what skill sets. We want to know who's on what projects. We want to know who's been talking to who and be able to mine that information and surface interesting information in the business about as they're trying to put together a new project team to go tackle whatever the next chip or technology solution. They want to go look backwards and say, I want to know who was working on what 2 or 3 years ago in these different domains. And we found that information was very hard to find. So we wanted to bring that together and have information about people in some easily accessible way and actually build that into the information layer so we could surface that into other systems. And they could very easily ask these questions. Who is working on this project? Who has the skill set? Who has these patents? Be able to answer those questions. So that was one goal. The other goal was we wanted to show off the system and go big on it, if you will, and say we want to show what data virtualization can do. And we have this particular application is our people website. So this is our company directory. Everyone logs into the system and finds who's your title, your information, where you are, all this information about you. And it's the most hit internal website we have. People are always looking to find someone else in the company and looking for people. We wanted to put it out there so as people came to us a year later and we said, hey, we really think you should look at data virtualization as an option. They'd say, well, I don't know, it sounds kind of scary, what other projects have been using it? And we tell them, oh, that's what people's running on. They look at us kind of funny, like, really? Because it's very, very fast as it responds. And we look later in the logs, and they're hitting the system trying to find out where it's slow, and they don't realize, it's been running on the system for over a year. And so it had this credibility to it, where we were able to meet the real-time demand of a web application that's getting hit very, very frequently, and they don't even know that behind the scenes it's doing virtualization and is federating those queries across multiple data stores. So at this point, maybe I've convinced you that data virtualization is interesting, maybe something worth taking a look at. And if you're interested, how do I get there? What do I actually do to start to move ahead here and maybe see some benefits? How do I realize, get the maximum return from my efforts in this space? And so kind of a three-step plan are the things that we did that we found were very successful for us. The first is to have the right message. And this, again, goes back to that information architecture I showed you. We built a common understanding of the problems that we were solving for the business. And it wasn't just, we're buying this technology to scratch this itch to do this thing. It was part of a bigger picture. So when it came time to cross that gap and say, we're going to look at data virtualization as a solution, they were already prepped. They already understood what we were trying to do. They understood the context we were operating in. And it makes the conversation much, much easier because you aren't talking about a specific technology, a specific vendor or technology, but you're talking about the entire stack, the entire solution. And again, for us, we found that just having that common understanding up front made that conversation much easier. And also, I've heard this time and again in different projects, different presentations that I've attended, find the right sponsor, and this was very true for us. Again, because we had built that common understanding up front, we also had a sponsor. Our CIO sponsored this effort early on. He was behind it. He said, I like where this is going. This is really going to help, IT get in front of the business. Because when we went to do that first project, Oasis, that wasn't our project. That was another team. And of course, they were very resistant. This is going to add risk to our project. We're trying to deliver, a new technology to our customer. And we don't know if we want to take on this risk right now. And having that key sponsorship got us through that hurdle and got us working with them, got them working with us in a way that would have been much more challenging without that key sponsorship. Demonstrate value. So we did a POC early on that we were able to measure results, and we brought Composite in, and within a week we were able to do what would have taken us 6 weeks without it. So we knew, because we had done that work, and we brought them into POC, demonstrated that it really could do what they said they could do. And that was a tremendous, the proof is there. The stuff really works, even though even I was skeptical when we were first looking at it. And then real results. This, again, was a key one to us, is that tie it to a major project or initiative. I showed you People and Oasis. Those were two big efforts. I see a lot of people bring in a new technology or a new stack, and they kind of shove it off to the side. We're going to test it over here where no one's looking and make sure that it kind of works and kind of do it in the dark. I say tie it to a project initiative. Let's see it succeed. If it succeeds, it should succeed big, and we've proven it's successful. And if it fails, we've said this isn't really what we were looking to do. And you can look at reasons, if that happens, why it was the case. But don't, shove it off the side. Make it something deliverable. Make it visible. And then last here is assign an expert to see it through adoption challenges. People know when you're sincere. So if you're saying this is what's going to happen, this is where we're going, this is the direction, and you don't assign an expert to work with them, and you say you need to be the expert, you kind of wash your hands. I don't have any skin in the game, right? You guys go figure it out and tell me how this data virtualization stuff works. No, we had an expert assigned saying this person's going to help you, going to help partner with you, your teams, and it shows that we're serious about this. We're going to help you, and if you have issues, this is the person you can call. He'll be there to work with you, and of course we have Composite right behind us there. So wrapping up, I know I'm running out of time here. Our results. We have 24, those are 2 projects. We have 24 total projects now in 2 years. That's, as I did these numbers just before last week, I'm amazed that's a project a month. And this is in production. We have 10 more actually in development right now in our dev systems. 19 services published. So Composite offers one-click web publishing. We're really trying to transform our SOA environment. And so it's been interesting seeing that a lot of the projects that are there are using services and are finding value out of that. 17 models are there, and our average project acceleration and savings, and you see here a 4 to 6 week project becomes 2 to 3 weeks. And again, the first week of that is very rapid development, and the last 2 weeks are usually data validation with a customer. So that really changed our timelines. And empirical observations, this is Observations from, I sent an email 2 weeks ago and kind of to some of the people who initially were very skeptical and said, it's been a year or 2 years, since you guys started. What are you seeing? Is data virtualization working for you? What are the challenges? And the response, I could have filled 2 or 3 more slides of responses just from the people who were originally skeptical. They can, you can read in there, but they were generally very positive responses that we received, again, from people that were initially very skeptical.